Coming up in today's newscast, tensions in Israel are rising in the wake of U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. Israel is believed to be behind an airstrike on an Iranian base in Syria. And if you missed Israel's Eurovision performance last night with Netta Brazilia, get your act together. It looks like the Holy Land may be on its way to glory. Tensions in Israel have ratcheted to new heights in the wake of President Trump's decision to withdraw the United States from the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. Moments before Trump gave his speech, the army reported unusual Iranian activity near military sites in Syria. And mere hours after Trump spoke, a suspected Iranian base near Damascus was pummeled with missiles. At this time, 9 Iranian fighters are believed to have been killed, and Israel is widely believed to be behind the attack. The army has demanded all bomb shelters in northern Israel to be open and ready for an impending Iranian assault. Iran has promised revenge for a similar airstrike in Syria last month that left at least 7 Iranian pro-regime fighters dead. But with the fate of the nuclear deal suddenly in limbo, this may be the final straw that breaks the camel's back and spirals into an all-out war.
If you say that Iran can't have a nuclear weapons program and that any nuclear weapons program could be the cause of a war, and then you walk away from the deal that's preventing them from having a nuclear weapons program, you certainly have to be a little bit concerned that it could potentially lead to war. So I'm not suggesting that either the Trump administration or the Netanyahu government have decided that they're about to go to war with Iran. But it does seem to me that they're pushing in directions that, combined with the tremendous tension and hostility in the region, could lead to war.
In Israel, the anxiety is incredibly palpable. The army has asked citizens in the north to remain calm despite the rising tensions. Schools in the Golan are open as normal. Life does go on, but under a new shadow of fear. Well, in the wake of Trump's decision to unilaterally withdraw from the Iranian nuclear deal, the world stands divided like never before. The U.S. will resume its economic sanctions on Tehran, but the remaining members of the original pact are urging Iran to remain in the deal, hoping to avoid a war that many suspect is now beginning to unfold. ILTV's Brett Allen Smith is here. And Brett, before we get into Europe's plan of action, what is the feeling in Iran?
So actually, it's pretty split. Iran's president Hassan Rouhani says that he plans to meet with European, Russian, and Chinese members of the deal to see if they can try to figure something out. And if that's really going to be the path here, Rouhani's probably hoping that the terms of the JCPOA will actually improve in Iran's favor now that everything's up in the air. Plus, now he has something Europe and the rest want. They want Iran to stay in the deal because the other scenario that is that everything collapses and Iran simply resumes developing nukes the very next day, which is exactly what the regime has promised to do.
Right. Well, if Rouhani is at least taking meetings first, this sounds like a somewhat diplomatic approach. But on the other hand of the spectrum, we are seeing Iranian leaders who are actually ecstatic that the deal's over because it frees Iran to develop weapons of mass destruction. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says the deal cannot be saved and that Trump's move only proves that America can't be trusted to uphold its end of any bargain.
Right. This is for sure going to fuel more extremism and mistrust against the U.S. And on top of the Guard, members of Iranian parliament just burned an effigy of the American flag during an open hearing. But look, even outside of Iran, Trump just divided the world's powers on a very critical issue that impacts everyone without offering any plan B, I might add. Take China and Russia, for example. The U.S. relations are already pretty stiff on those fronts. So if Trump just damaged or even burned a bridge or two there, that doesn't bode so well for deals that he's got to make down the line. Like Israel. I know Prime Minister Netanyahu is extremely pleased that this is the path that Trump is taking, and Netanyahu is in Russia right now talking with Putin. So the fear is, if Israel finds itself in a conflict, with Iranian proxies in Syria overseen by Russia, did Trump just blow his chance to help Israel negotiate with Putin if and when a situation like that arises?
Well, obviously, it's a huge ripple effect. That's precisely why Europe, China, Russia, and the U.S. are urging everyone to stay committed to the deal despite Trump's pullout. My question here is, can the deal still be saved?
Look, there's a chance, I'd say. The other members of the deal, spearheaded by Macron and May, they're going to try to band together as a unified front. And if in the end Iran is only looking at sanctions from the U.S., my guess is that it could survive that, and it may choose to. That would make Trump's decision yesterday, rather impotent, let's say. But the greater fear here is that Iran now gets to come to that negotiating table with a way, way better bargaining position. And considering that this deal back in 2015 took years to work together and to negotiate to get there. That's obviously not ideal for everyone else at that table that the U.S. now is no longer a part of. So the coming days are going to be very telling.
But we will, of course, be following things closely as they unfold. Thanks for joining us, Britt.
Sure.
Amidst tensions that couldn't be higher over Iran and Syria, Prime Minister Netanyahu has just left for Moscow to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Netanyahu says that his mission for this upcoming meeting was to ensure ongoing military cooperation in Syria, but many are skeptical at just how much Russia is willing to continue to allow. In fact, Russia has repeatedly warned Israel in the past to end all strikes against Iranian and Syrian targets in Syria, attacks just like those reported last night. Well, joining us now for a deeper analysis is Ze'ev Levin, the head of the Central Eurasian Research Unit at the Harry Truman Institute of the Hebrew University. Thank you so much for joining us. So let's start with the big question here. Do you suspect Israel and Russian military cooperation is going to continue in Syria, and if so, to what degree?
Well, as facts show, Russia and Israel are deep into cooperation in Syria. Just days after, again, alleged attack that Israel engaged in Syria, Prime Minister Netanyahu is made of guest of honor in Moscow now and accepted with highest honor. Atikva is sound just right next to the Red Square, and again, contrary to the past and the history when Russia was against Israel and supporting only one-sided the Arab world. This time Russia is cooperating, and again, Russia has their own interest in the Middle East. Not all our East interests are correlating, but still we have much more sharing than the dispute.
Well, you know, we saw these airstrikes last night. If Russia does, become more strict, will Israel be able to continue these, of course, alleged airstrikes? Again, it is believed that Israel is carrying out these airstrikes without getting in trouble with Russia?
Well, it depends what the interests of Russia in the region are. And the Iranian interests are in cope with Russian ones, but are not specifically the same. And Russia has their own interests in the region, and if they could get rid of the Iranians here, they wouldn't mind. They cooperating with the Iranians now in Syria because they have to do it. They are their partners on field. They have their own interests supporting Iranian economy and Iranian regime, again, because of the Russian interests, not because of the Iranians ones. And here again, when Russia looking on the region, on the whole region, and especially on the world scene, Israel is one of the partners that they want to deal with and have an open channel and dialogue with.
Well, Russian experts like Rajab Safarov from the Center for Contemporary Iranian Studies in Moscow have noted that now that this, Iranian nuclear deal is scrapped, Russia may be offering warplanes to Iran. Is there any validity to that?
Well, here again, it's very much depending on the Russian interests on spot.
Yeah.
They are supplying Iranians with anti-aircraft systems. Still, they say those systems are anti-attack ones and not aggressive ones. So I don't think that they will cross the line and support Iranians with military system.
Well, but the question here is, is Russia, there are some that believe that Russia and Israel are actually happy that we're on the brink of a war here. Is that the reality? No,
Russia is very concerned about the situation in the Middle East. They don't want to escalate the situation as it is now. Their concerns are about the escalation and the free hand that Israel has in Syria is in their fear that it will lead to some further escalation in the region. They are very much interested in maintaining Assad in power. They are very much interested in maintaining a kind of stability and peaceful resolution in the region. Well, they are controlling the situation.
All right. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Next week, Prime Minister Netanyahu will cut the ribbon and declare the new U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem open for business. But we won't have to wait long for the next such ceremony, because just 2 days after that, it looks like Guatemala's embassy will officially make the move as well.
El presidente Jimmy Morales estará viajando a Israel el día 14 de mayo para asistir a la inauguración de la nueva embajada que se está trasladando de Tel Aviv a Jerusalén. Esta nueva embajada estará en un campus tecnológico en Jerusalén, ubicado en el 3er nivel, y ya están todos los preparativos listos, desde los escritorios, cada uno de los lugares, hasta la misma bandera de Guatemala que ya está ondeando en este lugar. Se espera reunir con el primer ministro de Israel, Benjamín Netanyahu, también con el presidente de Israel, y también tendrá una reunión con el presidente del Congreso de Israel.
President Morales will open Guatemala's new embassy on May 16th. Guatemala was one of the few countries that openly embraced U.S. President Donald Trump's controversial Jerusalem decision late last year. The country is also heavily reliant on its alliance with both the United States and Israel. Shortly after Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital and declared that he would be moving the U.S. embassy accordingly, Guatemalan leadership quickly followed suit, despite intense international outrage from the rest of the world. Historically, countries have left the delicate issue of Jerusalem between Israel and the Palestinians to discuss in peace talks. Trump's speech is widely seen as a moment that the United States removed itself from its long-serving role as an impartial negotiator to those talks, and possibly the moment any hopes for a two-state solution finally collapsed. Still, Guatemala's declaration was soon followed by Paraguay. Paraguay will be third in line to relocate its embassy to Jerusalem, with a ribbon-cutting ceremony set for later this month. Israel may already boast the title of having the most vegans per capita, but Israelis apparently can't give up meat fast enough. A newly published study has just revealed that Israel has the world's worst carbon dioxide emissions from its poultry or chicken industry. ILTV's Aaron Porras has the details. Thanks for joining us on this.
Thank you, Natasha. And yeah, as you began to say, a German nutrition retailer by the name of NU3 studied the data from the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization on 130 different countries in terms of their diet, and they were looking for ways to reduce carbon emissions on diet changes alone. And so what they found that while Israel did okay in general, coming in 22nd place actually in terms of potential for carbon reduction through diet, we did the absolute worst for chicken specifically, coming in with something like 67 kilograms of emissions from chickens per person per year in Israel, which is about 5 kilograms higher than Trinidad and Tobago, who came in second, and almost 8 kilograms higher than Hong Kong, which came in third.
Wow, it's hard to even imagine how much that truly is, but it's fairly well known that the meat industry worldwide is a great contributor, obviously to greenhouse gas emissions. So really this study kind of sounds like it's overdue. But now you mentioned we're not obviously number one for total meat consumption. Yeah. It's more specific to chickens, but what is the damage there generally? Right,
so again, we're not as bad comparatively to a lot of the other countries, having come in 22nd place. Our total meat consumption caused emissions comes out to about 193 kilograms per person per year, whereas the world's first place winner in that category actually goes to Argentina with 306. And again, that is, of course, due to mostly the red meat diet that is in Argentina. But compare that again now to the meat-based diets, where in Argentina that number goes from 306 to 7.9 for a plant-based diet in terms of emissions, and for Israel 192 is reduced to 14.1. So it's a huge difference.
I mean, it's interesting because this comes on the heels, obviously, of the acquiring of an Israeli company that's trying to make lab-grown meat. So clearly there are ways in which Israel is trying to deal with this. I mean, this doesn't mean that we have to give up meat entirely, but what are the suggestions here?
Yeah, so for everybody who's not quite ready to give up meat entirely, I mean, a lot of people will argue, the writing is on the wall, give up meat. And here in Israel, the push for that is pretty strong. As we said earlier, a lot of vegans. But a lot of experts are saying, you don't need to give up meat entirely, you just need to cut back. Cut out red meat if you can. And then in terms of shifting to a plant-based diet and aiding that with a little bit of fish and lean proteins, chicken, not chicken, but eggs and things like that.
Well, I mean, I think Israelis do have to cut back on chicken at least, right? But thank you for joining us and telling us about this. This is a very pressing concern for our world. So Israel, work on it. All right, thanks for joining us. Israel is one of the world's biggest exporters of weapons. That's not too surprising, given that the country is constantly innovating cutting-edge new weaponry, and obviously has ample opportunity to test it in live combat. But what is surprising is just how fast that industry is growing. Israeli weapon sales to foreign countries have skyrocketed over 40% from 2016 to 2017. Over half of these sales were made in Asia and the Pacific. India alone accounts for nearly a third of all weapons exports from the Jewish state, a sign of improving relations between Jerusalem and New Delhi. Last year, Israel and India signed a deal for missile systems development valued at an estimated $2 billion. This helped bring Israel's total sales in that year to a very high $9.2 billion. Economically, these numbers are obviously a big win for Israel, keeping pace with heavy hitters like the U.S. and Russia. Still, many have criticized Israeli weapons sales in the past. Late last year, Israel denied selling weapons to Myanmar, a country long accused of committing mass genocide and ethnic cleansing. Video footage and pictures from Myanmar soon surfaced on social media, identifying Israeli military technology being used by Myanmar's forces. Israel has since claimed it has frozen all weapons sales to the country, but just last month, advanced Israeli weaponry made a surprise appearance in a music video produced by the Army of Azerbaijan, a country accused of killing Armenians and severely abusing human rights. All right, we all know that Israel is a technological and startup giant, but it's not always easy to stay that way. That's why IBM's AlphaZone accelerator program is doing all it can to train the next generation of business developers and keep Israel on top. Joining me now with more is Head of Startup and Development Ecosystems at IBM Israel, Gil Meital. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so what is the AlphaZone accelerator?
So IBM AlphaZone Accelerator is IBM's first accelerator in the world. It was founded by IBM, which operates in 176 countries around the world. And in Israel since 1949, it decided to establish AlphaZone in the startup nation in Israel.
Very interesting. So how long has this program been running?
So the program has been running for 4 years now. We had 6 batches, and now we started the 7th batch, the 7th class, on different areas such as healthcare, smarter cities, cybersecurity, and other stuff.
Now, obviously, there are plenty of accelerator programs here in Israel. Why was it important for IBM to create this one, and what makes it stand out?
So, first and foremost, the startup in IBM AlphaZone work with the top-notch technology of IBM, which is AI, Watson, blockchain, IoT, and other technologies. On healthcare, on smarter cities, on banking, on finance. This is one thing. We don't take equity from the startups. We only give services of technology, business development, and we take them globally with IBM.
Well, right, because obviously IBM is a very, very big company, so there is that power there. Do you have any success stories that stand out from this accelerator program?
Yes, actually there are many success stories. Maybe 2 of them is Neutrino. Neutrino created together with Watson an application for pregnant women that creates a tailor-made dietary advice for pregnant women. So this is one thing. And together with IQP, we launched an application for IoT that was sold to, the IQP was sold to GE.
Wow,
Digital.
and this was all taking place here in Israel,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Very interesting. All right, so for those who are watching and are interested in obviously getting into this accelerator program, how can they do that?
I mean, first of all, we have a landing page, which is www.ibmalphazone.com. They can apply. Then our team will go through their applications and see if they are a good fit for IBM. First of all, they have to be funded. They have to have a team. They have to have a product or a prototype. And then we can take them forward with IBM. We give services such as $120,000 in cloud credits and other services by the team and our mentors and a network of VCs.
Well, obviously, it's a very big deal to get accepted into this program. So thanks for joining us and telling us about it.
Thank you.
Israel's tech sector is already booming, but this year innovators decided to give back to the country in an amazing way. 150 tech engineers have just gathered for a 3-day event in Tel Aviv to create solutions for Israeli war veterans who were injured in combat. This is the second year of the Makers for Heroes project. The event teams up 15 IDF war vets who sacrificed life and often limb to protect their country in times of war, with some of the country's leading tech minds. The team spent 3 days trying to create a solution to help injured veterans adjust to injuries sustained in combat. For some, the physical healing is a doorway to a much deeper personal therapy. One team, for example, helped develop a customized camera system to help a former IDF soldier who lost one of his eyes in 2014's Operation Protective Edge in Gaza. Another team spent their 72 hours helping an IDF vet who had his leg amputated. Their project came up with an incredible solution to help him sit in any kind of chair, something previously impossible due to the nature of his injury. These projects are a moving reminder that even as progress moves on, the sacrifice of the country's soldiers can never be understated. That's why Makers for Heroes doesn't use this event to sell these incredible breakthroughs. Each and every project is actually uploaded for free online so that they can be adapted and used by anyone anywhere in the world hoping to heal the wounded. With Israel bracing for the very real possibility of a war with Iran, the timing of this event is a stark reminder of the true cost of war, the human one. All right, Israelis across the country are celebrating because it looks like Israel may actually win the Eurovision this year. Israeli performer Netta Brazilia has just made it to the finals and will be performing against 9 other European countries on Saturday in Lisbon. ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh is here with the details. Emmanuel, thanks for joining us.
Thank
I know you
you.
watched the performance last night.
I watched it last night, and I have to say that it's really not that big of a surprise that Israelis are really celebrating. She had an unbelievable performance last night. She's been on everybody's #1 list, you know, expected to win, expected to be number one.
Even on YouTube, I mean, her Eurovision YouTube video actually racked up millions of views.
Once it came out,
it was the most viewed almost.
Yes, it was the most viewed until literally the night before last night's performance. Cyprus kind of took over. People, you know,
which I don't really understand that because I do like the song from Cyprus, but I still think Netta kills this.
Well,
She's
why don't we
amazing.
actually take a look at last night's performance? Just a really quick clip.
It's just so good. You can't stop dancing every time you hear this. And I feel like everybody watches Netta and is like, wait, maybe I can do this too.
Well, I think that's actually a really big part of her song, her lyrics, her personality, everything that she kind of represents. Like, a lot of people really connected with her lyrics where it says, I'm not your toy, you stupid boy, things like that.
Well, it was a huge part of the Me Too movement. That's what the song was based on.
And
was
she's,
kind of
she's really
rights.
representing, you know, women empowerment and confidence and everything about that. And the 3 dancers that she had with her that came from Israel that were in her music video came to back her up in the performance itself last night. She wore her signature buns, the 2 buns that she has with highlights in pink. Her outfit was really colorful and like really stood out to her personality. You know, she's really true to herself. And she actually said in one interview that she was nervous to do pop music because she wasn't your typical, you know, pop star, when in reality that's everything that's changing right now, and she's such a big idol.
You know, I mean, I really love this performance, and my hope here is that, you know, there was a little part in the song that she kind of was slightly off tune, and I think people noticed that.
Yes.
So the hope is that when she, you know, performs again in the final, that's not going to happen and everything is going to go smoothly, because I think Israel really needs this win this year, and it will be the first time in decades.
In 20 years, it's going to be really exciting, and hopefully we'll have, you know, the next Eurovision here in Israel. So that's all we can really hope for.
All of our viewers, support Netta.
Yes, there's a Eurovision app. There's a Eurovision app to go and vote, and text messages, calling. I know I'll be voting. So
I know I will be too.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by IDC Summer Ulpan, open to everyone.
Here comes our Hebrew word of the day. Israel's Netta Brazilia has just made it to the Eurovision finals, and in my humble opinion, she's already shown that she dominates the competition. That's why today's word is lishlot, which means to dominate or to control. Now, if anyone's going to lishlot or dominate the world's longest running song contest, it's got to be Brazilia. From the get-go, we watched Netta sholetet, or dominate the polls, when her first video for Toy dropped. And personally, that song has been stuck in my head ever since. I guess you could say the song Sholetets my brain a little bit, but hey, clearly I'm not the only one. Her crazy awesome performance last night sends her to the finals. And my money says Brazilia is going to lishlot all the way to #1. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be partly cloudy and warm with a low of about 63 or 17 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow you can expect a rise in temperatures and partly cloudy skies again with a high of 89 or 32 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.61 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.